I would add.
Namaskar, welcome to another episode of DilSe Stories. We have another very special guest with us today, Mrs. Aishwarya Balasubramanian. Welcome.
Namaste. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure is ours. Could you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Aishwarya Balasubramanian. I am a Bharatanatyam dancer, performer, and teacher. I live in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I run a dance school called Arpanam Academy of Bharatanatyam, where I teach almost about 80 students here. I conduct classes in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and also I have a couple of students around the United States. So this is what I do.
Fantastic. And I'm Dr. Parag Bharadwaj. So let's talk about your journey with Bharatanatyam. Tell us how you got interested in it and the journey in terms of how you got to where you are today.
So Bharatanatyam didn't run in my family at all. It was not like a family thing. I'm a first generation Bharatanatyam dancer. When I was about 5 year. So my guru, my teacher is Srimati Anita Guha, Kalaimamani Srimati Anita Guha. She was our neighbor when I was a 4-year-old kid, and she had just moved from Hyderabad, and she was a performer, and moving into Chennai, she wanted to continue to impart her learning, and she started taking classes. And I was just another kid in the apartment neighborhood. So my mom sent me to, hey, why don't you learn dance? That we have a dance teacher just next door. So I started learning Bharatanatyam under her, and I'm still learning under her. It's almost been a 30 plus years journey. Yes, it's been a fun, passionate journey.
Got it. So, for the sake of our audience, tell us about the discipline that goes into learning Bharatanatyam. I mean, when you were a kid, how many times a week did you go for the classes? How much time did you devote? Was the focus on dancing only when you attended the classes, or were you expected to do some practice on your own?
So I grew up in Chennai, India for I moved here only in 2014. So my childhood, most of my adulthood was in Chennai. And having kids here or seeing kids here I see the kids are all doing multiple activities. They are into sports, they have piano, they have dance music, everything bundled together. But when I was a child and when I was growing up, we didn't have too many activities to focus on. So it was Bharatanatyam only for me. I would go to classes almost every day. I would practically live there. It was school, then dance class, school, then dance class, back home, eat, sleep, go to school, go to dance class, back home, eat, sleep. That's all. So I had the time, and I had the privilege of being in the art form dedicatedly without any distraction during my early years of learning. So all I knew was Bharatanatyam. All I did was Bharatanatyam. I mean, I was practically living in dance class. So that was the kind of privilege I had when I was growing up learning this art form.
So as a kid, you're easily distractible. Uh, did you ever feel like fed up of it?
No, this was dance class was like my home, the family, the dance class, my peers, my friends, everything with them for me when I grew up. So there was just no pressure. I didn't feel like one day, oh, do I have to go to dance class? There was just no feeling. We were performing constantly, touring constantly, getting ready for performances, and just having fun in dance classes. So it was never a distraction or a pressure for us.
I'm glad you mentioned you brought up the word fun because you know I didn't appreciate the art form when I was growing up, and then You know, I was at a performance one day and then I realized, oh my God, this is actually, there's a lot of discipline behind this, right?
It is rigorous. It needs a lot of discipline, but if you are going to do it passionately and wanting to do it with with like with a lot of contentment in it, I think the discipline, the commitment, and all the pain that comes in the process will feel much easier.
Great. So, can you tell us about the different, I mean, are there stages that you go through? Like, say, for example, if you're learning martial art, you have different belts, right? So, can you tell us in terms of your growth as a dancer, are there specific stages that you go through?
So my personal opinion and the environment I grew in, there are no stages per se. Like, you get initiated into the dance form, you continue to learn, you continue to grow. There will be a point where your teacher, your guru will realize that this student can enter into the stage where they perform the arangetram, the first stage performance. A lot of parents come and ask me, can my daughter perform arangetram in 3 years? Can my daughter perform arangetram in 5 years? I would say definitely it will take a minimum of 5 years of training, because the art form has a very disciplined approach and very uh, uh, strict theoretical approach. So minimum 5 years, and then depends on each kid. Each kid is different. We don't know the pace of each kid. So arangetram happens, and then you continue to, there are a lot of venues where you perform, go to competitions, perform, and then you just grow up in levels.
So, tell us a little bit more about Arangetram because that is what changed my perspective. I was invited to a friend's daughter's Arangetram. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I thought I was going to get very bored. I went half-heartedly. But when I came out, I came out with a lot of appreciation of the art form. And, these are children who are performing the art, and it's the first time that they're in front of a whole audience. So uh, it's a landmark sort of event for them as an
Yes.
artist.
Yes, it is a landmark, and if you happen to see that arangetram performed in the United States, it's more like a wedding, like the preparation. It comes with a lot of pressure, I would say, here, because the kids also have a timeline. The parents have a timeline. The kids are going to high school. The kids are going to graduate. We need to get this done before. It's like a checkoff box in their list that my daughter has been learning for so many years, and arangetram has to be ticked off and it has to be done, because it is something they look forward to, like an end of a journey event. But arangetram actually means it's the beginning of the journey in the dance form. It is not the end. So there are a lot of misconceptions on the theory of arangetram. But arangetram is like a beginning stage where the dancer just begins to perform a full length performance. And we look forward to many more venues and events after that. So yes, it will be a full length 90-minute to 2 hour performance where the dancer performs as a soloist with many numbers in her repertoire, which a lot of training for which a lot of training is needed, and many hours of dancing hours put in. So it's not a very simple thing to do here especially. Like I said, the kids are also doing multiple activities, and they're not able to dedicate as much of time as the kids who would probably dedicate in India. So it becomes a challenge, but nevertheless we all do it.
Got it. So I'm sure there are some parents, probably put undue pressure on you to get it going, but you have to sort of ensure as a teacher
I
that the
mean,
child is ready.
yeah, Yes, as a responsible teacher, I would say, um, if I'm putting a student on stage, that student should have that capacity to be on that stage with due respect to the art form. Um, so, yes, I would not probably encourage parents who come up with the idea of arangetram if I feel the child is not ready yet. Uh, some kids could take about 5 6 years, kids could take more, but if we are going to passionately do something well, then that time has to be given for the journey.
So interestingly, you said it's actually the beginning of the journey, it's not the end. So in your experience, once the children are done with this landmark performance, how many of them actually, or once the box is checked, right, like you said, how many of them actually continue the discipline and the practice?
So in India, I have found in India it's a very common understanding that arangetram is a first step. So people definitely, the parents and the kids definitely pursue the journey at least up until their graduation, whether they move on to jobs or whether they're going to move on with their life, getting married and all that. But here it's more difficult because once a kid is out of high school, college, pursuing this art form in college is very challenging for the kids here. Some kids still do. I have just I just completed my first Arangetram last year, and I have more coming up this year and the next year and so on. So I still have not experienced my Arangetram kids going out of my nest yet. They're still actively learning and performing. So I don't know how I would feel about a kid completing the Arangetram and completely stopping dance because they are busy. I have not come to that stage yet. But I think I will definitely come there at some point.
You know, you mentioned the word nest. So as a teacher, how does it feel, you know, when, I mean, to me, that's the student is now out into the world, right? Uh,
Yes,
like you mentioned, your teacher under whom you train for the rest of their lives, they will name you as the teacher under whom they learn the dance form. So, but then it also like, does it? I mean, it's letting go of the student, right? So it's also I'm sure it's mixed feelings, right? It's
right,
happiness, but then there's also a certain amount of sense of loss that okay, now the student is no longer going to be uh, with you as much as they used to.
correct. Yes, that would be a hard feeling, which I'm not looking forward to right now. Right now, all my kids are in the school stage, middle school stage. So I still have a couple more years for them to be out of my school,
5 years
pursuing.
is sorry, go ahead. You please complete what you were saying.
No, by the time they go out of high school to pursue their college education, there's still time for me to have to face that. Yeah.
So 5 years is actually a long time for a child, right? So it's great bonding between
Yes.
a teacher and the child in the formative years. And uh, one thing I have noticed now that I'm trying to rewind and replay the Arangetam that I attended, um, and subsequently have attended a few more, you know, these students are very confident. I've never heard anybody complain of stage fright. So do they participate in performances before?
Right.
Uh, okay.
We do a lot of performances, temple performances, competitions. It won't be the full length because Arangetram is like a entire 90-minute uh, effort, a performance. We would She would not probably experience that before the Arangetram, but they would be trained to perform at various venues for various short length performances in front of the audience because they get out of that, they experience the stage before actually going into the full length stage.
And just for the sake of the audience, Arangetam is like a solo performance for that duration,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Fascinating. Now, The other thing that caught my eye was when I was watching the performance is, as a doctor, I was, you know, it's a very high intensity exercise,
Yes.
right? With the postures, uh, and the poses and the dance steps. So, fitness and being fit, I'm sure, is a huge requirement.
Yes.
And so, I'm just curious, for a student who comes to your class, it's one class, but then I'm assuming you have multiple classes during the day, right? Uh, that's a
Yes.
pretty intense workout for somebody like you.
Correct. Like I said, it has a lot of technique and precision involved. So the body has to be trained to listen to us all the time. So most people would think that dance is an exercise. So do we need an exercise out of dance for a dancer? Definitely yes. Whether it is going to be any form of yoga, whether it's going to be strength training, um, definitely fitness is a requirement, like you said, like you mentioned. It is a requirement for a dancer, both mentally and physically, to train ourselves to be in control of the space.
Right? It's very interesting you mentioned control of the space, because I think I've done some yoga, and
Mm.
it's not just a physical exercise, it helps your mind as well. So I'm sure as students are learning the dance form, it's not only just helping them with their motor aspects of the body, but also the mental aspect as well.
Yes, I feel art just makes a person more whole, not just if you're a vocalist, if you're a musician, it's just not your singing or you're playing an instrument or being a dancer, it's just not you dancing. I think it makes an artist make themselves whole with all the other experiences they gain in the process. Um, if I'm going to be a teacher, I'm just not teaching them dance. I teach them how to process their emotions, how to be fearless on stage, how to handle pressure, how to smile when you're in pain, how to handle things if they forget things on stage. What happens if something falls on stage? How are they going to seamlessly handle everything? Everything comes with experience. There's no notebook, there's no code work, there's no pointers. But as and when we grow and as and when we repetitively do this, we also learn a lot of things in the process. And we don't apply them just in the art form we're doing. In our day to day life, we are able to navigate the pressures and try to be more mindful of everything around us.
Yeah, I was just going to point out an observation I've made, and that is, they're very calm. Bharatanatyam dancers, when you meet them off stage, actually, I just happened to uh, recall I attended a performance maybe 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and there were some artists that came from India. I just went backstage just to talk to them. They just finished a long performance, very calm, and very even keeled. So very impressive. Can you tell us a little bit about, during the training of the dance form, when do you introduce the skill set of, you uh, playing with the facial expressions and the eye movements? Because I think that's also one thing I've noticed is that they play a very important part in the dance form.
Yeah. So the first 2 to 3 years definitely involves all the technique learning, where what we call it as adavus, like the basic steps involved in the form of Bharatanatyam. The learning of that would take about 2 to 3 years. And then slowly we introduce them into small, short pieces of items. Whereas we start with something called Alaripu, which just puts like a combination of all the adavus they have learned. And then slowly they'll start learning an items where we start introducing facial expressions. And then there would come in a piece where we involve both the technique and the expressions together. And that's how we start building them in all forms of areas of the Bharatanatyam.
So how easy is it to maintain certain facial expressions when you are in a very difficult dance pose? I mean, I'm sure it requires a lot of discipline. Uh, could you elaborate a little bit on that?
When we teach them as lyric sahityam, where they are supposed to be showing the expression, we tell them the meaning of the song, the lyrics of the song, the emotion of the song, who is the character playing the song, whether it's a devotee expressing bhakti, devotion towards the god, or whether it is a heroine expressing love towards the hero. What is the underlying emotion we are talking about? What is the composer imagining when he composed the song for which we are dancing for? If he's going to be writing about a song on Krishna with devotion, I can't be interpreting that song as Shringaram towards Krishna, because we also have to respect the composer and his emotions while composing the song. So we explain everything to the students and slowly get them into the groove. Yes, the lyrics explanation, the mood explanation, everything has to be very clear, especially for the kids here, because they all speak multiple languages. They're mostly second generation. They're not been to India much. They won't be able to understand Krishna, Shiva well like we know them. So it is very important to help them understand the whole thing by explaining to them the mythological stories involved, the background involved, and then try to get them into the composition.
Very nice. I mean, it requires a lot of effort. Now, when does a performer qualify to become a teacher like you?
I don't think if you still have the conviction that you're still a student, still learning, and you're just trying to impart the art form which was very generously given to you by your teacher, with the same passion that you received to the students, um, trying to hold the essence of the art form, I think anyone can teach. Yes, there has to be honesty in doing this, because it's very easy to delineate from the originality of the art form. But I don't think teaching requires any requirement per se. But if you're able to do it passionately, then I think it would work.
Got it. And just I'm going to rewind a little bit when I was talking about the postures. So that's what actually got me interested in, reaching out to you, because on your Instagram account there is a picture of one of your students who is standing in a particular posture, which it just sort of blew my mind. And like stationary and almost at a 180-degree split. So just wanted to acknowledge that and uh, bring that up, because I would request the viewers to actually go and see that picture, and along with the others that you have uploaded. It's just very impressive. And I didn't associate that with a dance form.
I mean, thanks to the photographer, he was able to capture that one particular second of dance. It's actually a movement. It's not a stationary pose where we lift and then drop the leg down. And he was able to capture that beautifully in a second. So thanks to the photographer. But when you're doing a fast-paced piece where your hands are everywhere, your legs are everywhere, and you're trying to execute everything in coordination, it requires a lot of practice. Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. But even for a split second, I mean, it's
Yes.
very impressive. I
Yes.
can admit I cannot do it. So, tell us about your school and your students and what draws them to learn Bharatanatyam.
My school, Arpanam Academy, uh, has been teaching in US since 2016, and the school has been steadily growing. Why parents come to my school? Parents come with an intention that they want to get their kids uh, associated with Indian culture, Bharatanatyam, and that's the primary reason they come to me for learning this art form. And I think we've just been doing a good job. And, people talk about the school that we're doing a good job. So,
Great. And you recently had annual event, is my
yeah,
understanding.
yes, 2 weeks back, yes.
Great. I'm sure it went very well.
It,
Did you post clips of that event on your
not
Instagram,
yet.
or are you going to?
Not yet. I will be doing it, yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So we will actually put a link of your Instagram account. So I would request the viewers to go and have a look at it and follow you. The I'm just curious, when do, have you had students who are not of Indian origin?
Not of Indian origin, not yet.
And what about males? Is Bharatanatyam an art form or dance form just for females, or are there males who perform this
There
dance
are,
as well?
yeah, yeah. There are wonderful dancers, wonderful male dancers, very accomplished, who do Bharatanatyam and were very established in this art form. So it's not a female it is a female dominated art form, but there are excellent male practitioners and nattuanars and teachers and gurus who teach this art form really well. So it's not an art form just for female.
Great. And I'm assuming uh, this art form has been around for thousands of years.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so it's great that you're carrying the tradition all the way from India to the US, and um parents and the kids are interested in the art form, and we get to enjoy it, glimpses of it through the whatever you share online. Um, with that, I would like to conclude this interview. It's been a fascinating conversation, and we'd love to invite you again in the future as
Sure.
your and to learn of your school growing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Right. Namaskar.
Namaskar.